Across the globe, a quiet shift is happening. Borders blur, cultures collide, and whispers of it all being a grand sophisticated plan grow louder. The Great Replacement, a theory, a fear, or a reality? What if everything you knew about your world was being rewritten? Have you ever noticed that your country doesn't look quite like it used to? You walk down the streets and you aren't greeted by the friendly smile of a happy family doing some Christmas shopping. You exchange little words with the cashier at your local supermarket. You know none of your neighbours and they all look different to you. This is the Great Replacement and is happening all across the world, from the United States and Canada to Europe and New Zealand, and even my home country of Australia. A significant change seems to be happening. You know something's different, but you just can't quite put your finger on what. You aren't supposed to notice. That's not a part of the plan. This video was never meant to be made, but you're here and you are in a community of like-minded thinkers pushing back against this wicked agenda to steal our homeland and to destroy the inheritance our ancestors gifted to us and our children, but we can't let them succeed. The Great Replacement is a controversial theory, fact, claiming that white populations in Western nations are being systematically replaced by non-white immigrants, driven by declining birth rates among whites and the mass migration of non-whites. But people are saying it's false! Well, in this video, I'll prove that it is real and that it is happening. Take a look at this GIF of the population of white Americans in the United States between 1960 and 2020. Every state besides Hawaii, obviously, had a significant white majority. The vast majority of the population, of over 90%, was white, excepting the South and a few other states, where they still had a clear majority. Skipping forward a few decades, you can see that the percentages are going down in all states until 2020, the most recent census, where the population of whites was less than 62%, and for the first time ever, the population of whites actually went down. A fact which was met by the rapturous applause by the crowd of The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, which even Jimmy Fallon was dumbfounded by.
Some more news. The results of the 2020 census just came out, and for the first time in American history, the number of white people went down.
Yes, Jimmy, they want us dead. Congratulations for catching up. The population of whites declined by 10% nationwide and over 20% in Texas in that single decade. Non-Hispanic white Americans are projected to lose majority status within only 20 years, and currently non-Hispanic white Americans under the age of 18 are already a minority. We have to hope against hope, but it's seemingly more and more likely that it's a matter of when and not if white Americans lose their majority status in the United States. It's not just in the United States. Just up north in Canada, you can see that in 1981, whites comprised 93% of the population, and the other groups were insignificant. Skipping forward to the new millennium, the white population has dropped by 10% and 3 additional racial groups have been added to the pie chart. Today, whites are less than 70% of the population, which is better than the United States on paper, but at least Latin Americans, who comprise 20% of the population, can hypothetically pass as white. White Canadians will lose their majority status by the middle of the century. Crossing the pond over to the United Kingdom, the situation isn't too bright there either, with the United Kingdom turning from a virtual ethno-state at 99.9% at the dawn of the Second Elizabethan era to be only 83% of the population at the end of the Second Elizabethan era. Safe to say that Her Majesty failed in her duty to protect Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Although that could almost be excused, as her son is far worse, as he actually encourages the Great Replacement. But a sign of positivity is that the white population of the United Kingdom is the highest proportion of any country we'll be looking at today. I unfortunately do have to shadow that positivity, however, as its capital, London, does not paint a bright picture. In 1961, Londoners were spending most of their lives living in a white man's paradise, but in 2021, whites were on the verge of becoming a plurality, and it has most certainly happened by now. Needless to say, it's a troubling sign when the capital, the city that makes the policy shaping the entire country, has values juxtaposing the values of the majority population. White Britons are projected to become a minority by 2063. In my homeland of Australia, prior to the abolition of the White Australia policy and when the census stopped gathering racial data, Australia was 99% white. Today, it is only approximately 70% white and will likely become plurality white by the end of the century. Every majority white country has a similar story, and we could stay here and look at every white country and feel sorry for ourselves. But if we want to be a serious movement, we have to champion all different forms of intelligence and knowledge, which means we will have to deep dive into the facts of the Great Replacement, because we will be confronted about our beliefs and they will lie to us about what is happening. What is happening to our countries is deeply evil and deeply wicked. Our countries are being ruined by immigrants, and many people are either unaware or unbothered by it. Towards the end of 2024, a major spat erupted on Twitter about H-1B visas. H-1B visas, for those who do not know, allow US employers to hire foreign professionals for specialty occupations temporarily temporarily, although many times it is a pathway to permanent residency. The spat erupted among supporters of the US President-elect Donald Trump over H-1B visas. US tech leaders like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy defended the program, arguing it attracts critical talent to companies like Tesla and SpaceX. However, immigration hardliners including Laura Loomer opposed it, claiming it prioritizes foreign workers over Americans via the undercutting of American wages. Trump, previously critical of H-1B visas, sided with Musk, sparking backlash from immigration hardliners. The conflict heightened tensions between tech industry needs and anti-immigration sentiments within Trump's base. I wrote in my Substack, Kerntown, which you can check out in the description, why tech oligarchs such as Elon and Vivek support mass migration. Mass migration is used to depress wages. This concept is easily understood via supply and demand. When there is a high supply of labor, the leverage that each individual worker has decreases in regards to wages, hours, benefits, etc. As there will always be someone, almost always an immigrant, willing to work longer hours for less. It doesn't matter how bad a job is for an immigrant, it will almost always be better than the best middle class jobs in their home country. Firstly, in an environment of a low supply of labor and high demand for labor, the leverage bosses has decreases and the leverage each individual worker has increases as bosses do not have a large pool of labor to work from. I wrote this during a time of social unrest in Los Angeles over ICE raids aimed at deporting illegal immigrants. Trump has promised to deport all illegal immigrants and has so far done a pretty piss poor job at it. He's only on track for 1.5 million deportations as opposed to the 10 million that arrived during Biden's term. Much of this unrest is at the hands of Mexicans and other non-white groups. They wave Mexican flags and claim to love Mexico, but they don't want to go back to their country of origin. That's confusing. Going further, migrants tend to keep their nationalism of their homeland and their contempt for their regional neighbours. One such example, there was recently a murder of a Sikh activist for an independent Sikh homeland by a Hindu who was linked to the Indian government in Canada. Down under in Australia, when our Prime Minister Anthony Albanese met with Narendra Modi, Modi brought to Alba's attention anti-Hindu graffiti by Sikhs on Hindu temples in Sydney. Which raises a good question. Why are they bringing their petty squabbles here? Honestly, why? Why are they bringing it here? Why are Hindus and Sikhs migrating overseas and continuing to hate each other here? Why are they migrating here? They have no intention of assimilating. They keep their religion, they keep their nationalism, and they keep their contempt for their neighbours. But don't you dare say they aren't Australian or Canadian, even though they don't claim to be and make no effort to assimilate, just like I said, because that's racist and that's cultural genocide. How does that make sense? I don't fucking know. Nobody fucking knows. But this pales in comparison to the Israeli-Hamas conflict. Almost every fucking weekend since October 7th, Muslims and leftists have marched in major cities across the globe demanding that the genocide end and for Palestine to be freed. You also have Israelis and Zionist organizations constantly harping on about Hamas and the need for censorship of alleged anti-Semites who in reality just critics of Israel. You go on Twitter and Zionists and Muslims are constantly calling for the genocide of each other. How about you take a fucking chill pill? Obviously the 7 October attacks were wrong and Hamas should be punished, but that does not justify the mass slaughter of innocent civilians, especially children, that is occurring in Gaza right now. These people obviously have no love for this country either, and many times hate our country. So how about you get the fuck out of our country and fight the other side on your own soil? We do not kill other people because of their race or religion in this country. Going back to Canada, they recently had an election and it yielded some interesting results. In the 343-seat Canadian House of Commons, 22 seats were won by Punjabis. A single fucking state in India managed to win nearly 6.5% of all seats in the Canadian House of Commons. Brampton is a city in the Greater Toronto area, but you'd be forgiven for thinking it was in India if you took a look at the candidates running across the city. I did not spot a single Canadian running in the entirety of Brampton. Muslims across the United Kingdom, the United States and Australia shifted left in huge numbers in their respective elections for the sole purpose of Palestine. Dearborn, Michigan, the city with the highest proportion of Islamic residents in the United States, voted 22% for Jill Stein, the Green candidate who was firmly pro-Palestine, and she likely won the nationwide Muslim American vote. She only won half a percentage in the nationwide vote, less than 900,000 votes. George Galloway, who is a white Muslim and is one of the internet's leading voices for Palestine, was elected to the UK Parliament campaigning for Palestine. While Galloway lost his seat at the 2024 UK general election, many Muslim independents were elected to the UK Parliament in his stead by their constituency on the sole issue of Palestine. In Australia, while still having Muslim independents and Green candidates challenged Labour in Western Sydney and suburban Melbourne seats with high Islamic populations, no seats fell to single-issue Palestine candidates this time around. Australia has been very lucky to avoid the sort of racial sectarianism seen in the United States and South Africa, but unfortunately it has arrived here against our wishes. These foreigners who hate our country and our people came here to steal our jobs and our land. The founding stock of Australia, Anglo-Celtics, are now enclaves in a sea of other Europeans and non-whites in the two largest cities, Sydney and Melbourne. But thankfully, my home city of Brisbane is nowhere near as bad. Migrants, as they are stealing everything from us, our land, our jobs, our country, would be wise to be extremely grateful for being granted entrance to our countries. But not only are they not grateful for letting them live here, they are not good guests. Constantly they commit violent, horrific crimes and only get a slap on the wrist where a native Australian would get a much tougher sentence. There is an entire website, The Noticer, who do fantastic work, dedicated to exposing these wicked miscarriages of justice. Here are just a handful of stories to make your blood boil. African woman who brutally bashed autistic girl of 14 has jail sentence squashed. Indian Uber driver avoids jail for killing young dad while making illegal turn in Adelaide. Bangladeshi student, 27, accused of sexually assaulting girl, 15, at Bondi Westfield, given bail. African allegedly sexually assaults woman in Melbourne 8 hours after being bailed. African teen jailed for just 8 years for stabbing murder of Melbourne schoolboy. Indian IT worker spared jail for sexually assaulting 17 women at a Melbourne nightclub. Paedophile Sri Lankan dad sentenced to just 6 months in jail in Perth. African gang member avoids jail for Hamid rampage after being spared deportation. Killer Indian driver sentence delayed because he can't practice his Sikh religion in jail. African thug on bail attacks 2 strangers after being let out of psych ward. Indian driver bailed days after killing girlfriend in high-speed crash in Melbourne. Sudanese one-punch killer spared more jail over new assaults. And again, this is just Australia. Protest any of this and you are racist. And you're also racist for saying that it's, just check notes, okay to be white. It is racist to say it is okay to be white in Australia. A white country. It is clear that they want us dead. That's clear to anyone with a brain. And somehow it's not racist to oppose white identitarianism because non-whites can't be racist. Which seems pretty racist to me. But I'm just an evil straight white male. The left celebrates the decline of the white people, as we saw with the Jimmy Fallon clip earlier. As we see from leftist politicians, even politicians that pretend to be conservative, and leftist activists. But also that it is happening, and it's such a good thing, worthy of constant celebration, and you're racist if you don't think it's a good thing. Many people have labelled the Great Replacement reality a conspiracy and libelled the names of many people who have dedicated their lives to exposing this fact as white supremacists and liars, so I thought I'd debunk some common talking points that aim to refute the Great Replacement reality. MrBeast is one of the most popular historical YouTubers who specialises in American history. He's been caught out numerous times pushing a far-left agenda and is one of the worst actors on YouTube. There are so many lies in this video that I will only have time to address 3 in this video, although I am currently in the process of planning a dedicated video debunking his entire video, so make sure you are subscribed with the notifications on so you can check that out next week. Line number 1. White people aren't encouraged to forego children. Really? A sign of only white people telling them to get sterilised. The fact that millions of babies across the West are aborted each year, most of whom are white. The constant gaslighting of women into not having children, saying it's racist to have children, and saying that you're destroying the world by having children. That isn't encouraging white people to forego children. Line number 2. Mass non-white immigration since the mid-1960s is a normal pattern of immigration. This is pretty easy to debunk. All white countries strictly limited or outright banned the immigration of non-white peoples to the nations until circa the mid-1960s. The mass movement of non-whites to Europe, Northern America and Australasia is historically abnormal in the grand scheme of things. Even if mass migration as a concept is considered controlling for just whites, countries such as the US open and shut their borders for mass European immigration in approximately 15-year intervals to allow them to assimilate and to not cause a strain on their resources, while Australia outright banned non-white immigration and strictly limited non-Anglo-Celtic immigration. Line number 3. The Great Replacement reality is not backed by any evidence. I already debunked this earlier in the video, but everywhere in the world, even Africa, white people as a proportion of the population are declining. That is the end of part 1. Please like and share the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your thoughts on the Great Replacement. Make sure you stay tuned for my video debunking counter arguments by MrBeast in his video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, my Substack and all my social medias, and consider joining my Patreon for as little as $5 Australian per month, which you can access via my link tree. I hope you all enjoyed this video and I will see you all next time.